George. Okay, fine. We are on air. George, the word is yours. Now go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is George Sebastiao, CTO by day, and lots of blockchain and advisory projects by night, and also a lot of volunteer work in the process. Today, we're going to be talking about real estate, asset tokenization, and blockchain. So let me maybe share my screen. It's you have to enable sharing of screen to me. Okay.
Yes, done.
Okay, perfect. So let me see if I can share the desktop.
Yeah.
And 1 second. And you should be able to see the presentation any second now. Let me plug
it works.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So we're going to be spending about the next 15 minutes or so together. And during this short overview, I'm going to give you the best possible description about the value of asset tokenization and blockchain. Obviously, you have to keep in mind that I would like to take the opportunity for thanking Ivanov, which we met a few times in Moscow during the last event, and the Digital Week, which is this ongoing event. So the key elements that are important that we're going to be covering have to do with the whole ecosystem about blockchain. I volunteer in 2 large organizations. Some of them I've presented earlier today, both the Global Blockchain Organization and the Government Blockchain Association. These are organizations that make sure and drive use cases as well as adoption of blockchain. One of the important aspects about blockchain is in this space, we really have a lot of brains and ideas, and a lot of this energy gets channeled into real use cases and day-to-day usages. And today I'm going to be covering one of them. What is really important about blockchain is actually when you use it and you actually don't see it. But its primarily purpose, blockchain is actually a technology of trust. So blockchain allows you to conduct trusted operations in a digital environment and allows multiple parties coming together to share a business reality. Many people also sometimes refer to blockchain as the Internet of Value, as opposed to the traditional Internet we have used for many years now. So what is really asset tokenization, even before real estate tokenization? Is really, we can take any assets that we have today in the real world. It could be real estate, could be valuable art objects, could be gold, diamonds, or other assets. And what we do is we do a digital representation of these assets, and we actually tokenize them. That really means the process of tokenization means that those assets need to be preserved in their original state, and the people will have ownership of these assets, not through the physical asset itself, but through the tokens, having the advantage of the whole blockchain functionality and ecosystem. But obviously, when we look at tokenization and real estate, there's some real unique challenges that are directly applicable to real estate itself. We have many cases of fraud and manipulation of things like title deeds or other entries, and we have seen that over many years. We have a very high entry-level barrier, meaning that somebody wants to participate in a real estate project, you need to have either a down payment or a very big loan. And it's not always a very liquid asset, meaning if you want to sell and get some cash for a portion of the entirety of that real estate, it may take you several months or sometimes even years. And the transaction costs associated with it are extremely high as well, and many others. I just mentioned just a few that are extremely important. So here we're talking really about blockchain and real estate assets. So we are doing several projects in the Middle East region. Specifically, we have a regulated one that is in advanced stages in the Kingdom of Bahrain, and that's what you see there. Now, if we look at the traditional paper-based title deeds, which has been with us for many, many years, it is obviously can easily lead to fraud, or more than one person actually ended up owning the same piece of real estate, which has caused us substantial problems. So what we're really doing is digitizing this title deed, and this enables us to protect this title deed through cryptography, through a distributed ledger database. We can enable contracts, not just the traditional contracts that we may have through lawyers, but we have smart contracts. And obviously, the distributed network enables us to have a multitude or a variety of consensus mechanisms to achieve when transactions actually happen. So when you buy or sell tokens associated with that real estate, or when the property or the title deed gets finished. So what is really these capabilities? These capabilities have to do that in a traditional mechanism. We have a physical property and the associated title deeds. In blockchain environment, what we have is a digital representation of this property and the capability of breaking this big property into a lot of small tokens. And these tokens represent a percentage ownership, or what we sometimes refer to as a fractional ownership of this property. Meaning that when we have things like fractional ownership, we automatically solve already one of the initial problems of real estate, which is the high cost entry barrier level. So somebody can enter the market with little amounts, as little as $1, $10, $100, and so on. But real estate tokenization is much more than just the fractional ownership. One has to keep in mind that in real estate, value gets created in many ways. One, it's the value appreciation or depreciation of that real estate asset and the property in which it sits, but also the services that actually get conducted on this real estate. The building that you own may be monetized through something like digital signage or others. We may also have property management services. We may run a hotel, we may run restaurants or other properties, and this will generate revenues. So that really means that when you own the fractional ownership of assets, you're also going to get some dividends associated with the operation of that real estate. So on one side, you have a capital appreciation of that real estate, and it's proportional to your ownership, but you also have regular dividends associated with the services that are performed and generate revenue associated with this real estate. So we need to have a really set of structured onboarding processes to enable this to actually see the day of light. So we have the property itself. We have to do things like due diligence to validate that the property is safe. There is no liens against the property, maybe loans that are hidden from the past. We have to capture the title deed, and then we can put the whole thing in an escrow account that is protected and wrapped by a smart contract. Once the actual property is owned and properly secured, then we can actually list this tokenized property on exchanges, and then people can go out and start purchasing or even over time trading these tokens as well. But it's not just about the property itself, it's how we approach the customers which will acquire this property. So they have to open an account. We need to know who those customers are. So things like KYC and Know Your Customer, and AML stands for anti-money laundering. These are standards that must be complied with. They can pay by bank deposits, credit cards, or others, since the amount they may be buying is small. And then they can buy it on an exchange, and they have then the fractional ownership of this real estate. But I mentioned that there is other services around property management that can be monetized. And the way we do is we have a series of applications that are put together along with the property itself. This allows us to list the property, to lease services out of this property, to offer also things like, for example, maintenance services or others to rejuvenate or fix any problems that may be on the property. So you have not just the capability of fractional ownership, but also the capability of use funds or utility tokens to actually pay for some of these services, which generates another constant revenue stream as well for the owners. All this series of approaches towards real estate asset tokenization have different levels of maturity. So commercial real estate and cryptocurrency transactions have been adopted for quite some time. If you look at a place like, for example, Dubai, as far back as 3 years ago, you could buy a real estate property using cryptocurrencies. But when we talk about digital asset tokenization for real estate, there's many other important elements. You have to have title deed land registries, which can be also tokenized. And my previous friend covered this as part of his GBA presentation. We have the introduction of smart contracts and much more sophisticated due diligence. So all these various approaches to use of blockchain are today at various stages of maturity. But one key important element about all of this is obviously regulatory licensing. Not every place in the Middle East or around the world allows for this to be used or performed. So central authority organizations need to come along and have the necessary governance and regulations that ensure that the actual investors in this real estate get fully protected. So there is usually events that take place like a sandbox, which tries the regulations for a period of time and then enables this to mature to a full licensing scheme. But one key element of all this operation is really auditing, because we want to make sure that the value of the assets that the investors are putting their faith in actually gets fully protected from beginning to end. And this is very important. So trust in the whole system. Because tokenization needs good quality data to be entered into the blockchain. Beyond just blockchain and tokenization, any kind of solution that deals with real estate asset tokenization is really an ecosystem of partnerships that enables this to function extremely well-oiled machine. So regulations is one of them, blockchain, banks and financial institutions, brokers, the service providers, and obviously trusted third-party auditors that validate to make sure that the transactions are conducted in a safe and trusted manner. But obviously, some challenges really remain. And these challenges have obviously to do with adoption. I already mentioned regulation needs to evolve. And although places like Bahrain have already gone ahead and not just have the sandbox, but also have full licensing capabilities, other places like Abu Dhabi are looking at regulation as well. But we need to go beyond just regulatory. We have many blockchains. So people still look at, for example, things like interoperability of blockchains as a big issue. So we need to have standards about blockchain and make sure that the various blockchains that we use can actually talk to each other and that they can easily interchange information. Some of the blockchains that we use have scalability problems, performance problems. They cannot perform enough transactions per second. So we need to be able to manage those challenges as well. Many new features in blockchain 2.0, 3.0 actually address a lot of these issues as well. And finally, I do think that audit and compliance is obviously a very key element to adoption as well, to make sure that we have a complete trust into the entire system. So if we look at the various issues associated with adoption, and we look at the maturity of the solutions that we have, we really can establish the timeline of what are the viable solutions that we can use today. For sure, tokenization of commercial real estate is one of them. Asset management of multi-large tenant properties, things like title deed registries and capability of searching properties online and being trusted that those properties actually exist. But in the areas of, for example, smart contracts, due diligence, and supply management for services, still a lot of evolution needs to take place so that all these services that go along with the ecosystem and the adoption grow to a proper maturity state. This is my short presentation that I had for you today. I do have a paper online on LinkedIn that describes in a few pages the elements associated with real estate asset tokenization. So I invite you to go on LinkedIn and read this paper in more detail. I can make obviously a copy of the presentation available. The Digital Week online will also have a recorded version of this YouTube session, and we continue the dialogue in cyber digital space. It has been a pleasure to be with you, and looking forward to connecting and making this exciting solutions of real estate tokenization advance in a safe, secure, and trusted manner.
Okay, George, nice to meet you here. I'm my biggest respect to you as well, yes, for your great presentation. Now we have to go forward. There is no time for question. I'm sorry. Yes.
No problem. See Next you. Time. See you.
Okay, sure.
До свидания. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we are on air, and our guest today is Lon Wang, CEO at Proximax, and he is a CTO of the New Paradigm. Lon, go ahead.
Yes, hi. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, everyone.
Yes,
it's morning here in Australia.
Yeah.
Today I'm going to talk about the new paradigm, the STO, the new paradigm that's going to take place and change the world in the years to come. And before I begin with that slides and presentation, I'd like to introduce a little bit about myself. My name is Lon Wang, and I'm the CEO of ProximaX. So basically, ProximaX is a platform that is an agglomeration of service layers that we have put together as a technology stack so that people can actually develop on that solution. And this technology stack has basically a few elements. One element is the blockchain, obviously, itself, the streaming component as well, super contract. We call it super contract because it's a variation of smart contracts. And finally, we have a storage element in this stack. So together they become a technology stack for us to be able to develop solutions on top of it. So it gives us a multitude of variations where we can develop solutions on from financial technology right up to IoT to storage of information, streaming of information, and so on. So this is what ProximaX is about. And what I'm about to share with you today is a solution that we have developed, and it's called EDLX, and it's based on STO, and how we have actually transformed or put together a solution for us. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sure. Yes, for sure. We're here. Everything is good. Don't worry.
All right, okay, because I hear background, someone is saying hello to me. All right, anyway, So this is what I'm going to talk about today, the new paradigm. Okay. So let us take a step back. Yes, I'm presenting. Someone is talking to me.
No. You know, maybe on your devices, on some of your devices, something turned on. That's why you're listening. Here we are only now in Zoom. Nothing where.
All right, no worries.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's take a look at the background of how the STOs actually emerged from the days since 2013 to be exact. You know, in the beginning, we had coins like projects like Peercoin, Feathercoin, you know, things like. Okay, sorry, I've been hearing voices. Anyways, I hope I'm not deluded. So, in the early days, you have things like Feathercoin, Peercoin, and WorldCoin, Lucky Coin, and all those coins that came out as experiments. Those are basically experiments from the emergence of Bitcoin as a blockchain technology. This happened, you know, in the 3 years following the launch of the Bitcoin blockchain technology. And come 2013, we had people talking about pre-mined coins. And with pre-mined coins are generated ahead of the project so that people could subscribe to it. And those coins were basically utility coins at the time. But fast forward to about 2016, 2017, these coins have morphed into what we call ICO, where people subscribe to these coins and it became some sort of an investment utility rather than a store of value for these coins. And this actually went out of control in 2017 when billions were raised. And eventually what happened was there was a cross between the ICO coins and the STO coins. And STO, as you all know today, is security tokens, right? And that's when the jurisdiction started clamping down, and we had the USA coming out with the Howey test, which was a test of a precedent that happened in the 1940s, right, of people selling securities as a result of a slight change in the way the securities were sold, but then nevertheless they have been defined as a security, and therefore you can't sell openly in the public as a security. And that's when today, as we see, most coins are actually security tokens, and there's a fine line between store of value as well as something that is of utility versus whether the coin is a security or not. But unfortunately, if you really look at it, most coins are actually a security token. So that's the reality of it. And because of the very fact that many of these coins have been promoted as an investment coin rather than a store of value or a utility coin. And that's where the difference is. So if it's promoted as a security coin, then it fails the Howey test, which means it is a security. So that's the background of STO and background of security tokens. So moving forward, what we have is that the security token is today obviously is blockchain powered, right? It can be offered globally, but there's a caveat here. You know, security tokens can be offered globally, but unfortunately, much of the restrictions happen in North America, and that's where it becomes an issue with a lot of offerings around the world, where residents of North America are probably or cannot really participate in security token offering. Then we have another salient feature of the security token where it can be traded in cryptocurrency in certain jurisdictions. And it can be traded in multi-currency in all jurisdictions where the STO is an approved security token for trade or for offer. And the other thing is that it doesn't need clearing, it doesn't need settlement, it doesn't need brokers, it has no need for custodians because most things are on-chain. So, and the last thing is that it can be listed in multiple exchanges, like how a crypto token could be listed in multiple exchanges, provided that these exchanges adhere to some regulatory guidelines and framework where the tokens must have, the operators of these exchanges must have some sort of AML management, some sort of KYC management, as well as the investors' background and profile where they are approved for investments. So this is where the security token is as a novel way of public offering of securities. It's slightly different from the traditional stocks, but or securities, but basically they are different in a manner where the regulatory framework is adjusted to include security token offering on the blockchain powered platform. So moving on, we have a table here. I have a table here, but in particular is the bottom half of the table where it shows the difference between a public security where stocks are traded in traditional exchanges like NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange or London Stock Exchange, where the security token has a very different way in distribution and in trading, where it requires no broker, it requires no clearinghouse, it requires no settlement system, and it has fractional ownership. And the cost of transaction obviously is lower, as well as the listing cost, plus the regulatory requirements are much less stringent, or it has some leeway in which these tokens are being offered to the public. So, and these are the things where, in the end, it shows that the security token has a much more propensity to grow, and it has a very different approach to how traditional securities are being offered and traded in markets. And I think one of the key things that's happening around the world is that the traditional exchanges are not going to sit around and see what's happening to the security token markets. They have realized that the security token markets is one thing that is going to happen and going to change the world and change the way the traditional capital markets are going to be traded in the future, because security tokens, as I've highlighted earlier, is that they are much more progressive and much more basically much more efficient, because middlemen are all been taken out of the equation, and that's a $1 trillion industry that we're looking at that has been taken out of the equation. So if you look at the mainstream solution using DLT and blockchain companies using again DLT, you see that the mainstream have a lot of problems. I've got two pictures here to show that there's a huge car there being transported or being added on with a plane that's trying to fly it. It's not going to fly because it's clunky. It has a car body with an engine, and then you have an aircraft and an engine. You have two engines trying to make things fly. Whereas if you look at the blockchain solutions, you have basically an engine that has wings and is well designed to fly, right? So that's where the difference is. So the solutions in mainstream companies like NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange or Australian Stock Exchange is that what they have done is that they are working on a Lego-like adding on solutions into their existing monolithic designs. And there are also rigid compliance based on traditional operating procedures and legal complications, too many value chain players. And this is where it is a showstopper when it comes to value chain players, because you have the security custodian, we have the central security depository, you have the settlement and clearing houses, and it's too disruptive to the entire industry. And if you look at the entire industry, it's not just an exchange or the security that's in question, that are in question, you know, is the entire ecosystem that have been thriving a bit on it for the last 400 years, right? And it's morphed itself into a huge monolithic industry where you can't pull them apart because a lot of players will be affected, and this is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And what we are trying to achieve as a blockchain solution with STO is that we're getting rid of the settlement and clearing. We have no legacy, we have no brokers, we have no custodians, security custodians, we have no central security depository, because all this are actually on-chain, right? And this is where the challenge is for traditional markets, where they can't pull that apart and they can't do anything about it because it affects a lot of ecosystem players. If you look at what happened to the brokers in the years before this, like 25 years ago, you still can buy your security through brokers. Today, you don't need to buy through them. You must buy through the internet, right? And these brokers, the physical brokers and the broking houses, has reduced themselves more so into a internet-based sort of broking, where you do not need physical brokers to take your orders, right? So their roles have already been diminished, but they still play a big part in settlement and clearing today. But you don't need them to do any settlement and clearing. In fact, you don't need a settlement and clearing platform or institution to do any of those. So this is where is going to change the paradigm when it comes to STO that bears a lot of resemblance. In fact, a lot of things that we can do with STO as opposed to what traditional stock markets or security markets are doing. So this is where we have something that is going to set a change the world. So if you look at what STO is about, basically you have three types of solutions out there. One is entirely smart contract driven. The other one is some sort of a smart contract driven with mostly embedded smarts in the DLT itself and a database driven exchange. And then you have the DEX, where it is entirely on-chain. But DEX has a solution, has a problem where high frequency trade is quite difficult. DEX means distributed exchange, where everything is online, on-chain, and that's where the problem is, right? So more likely, the model where it's totally smart contract or where it's semi-smart contract and embedded smarts in it, running alongside a database-driven exchange, something like what we see in crypto exchanges today is what's going to happen. And moving forward with that is how regulators will see it and how implementers will implement some sort of hybrid solutions. And as what Jorge has said earlier, there is a problem that we're going to have later on where we have interoperability as a major issue that has to be addressed by the industry, the blockchain STO industry. So these are the three models where I can see things are happening and how it will slowly evolve in the next few years. So the challenges that we have when it comes to
please, we have to finish. The time is over now. Yeah, just
okay.
hit accelerator. Yeah.
All right. Okay. This is the last slide. So what we have is that the challenges we have looking ahead of is reputation of some of these SEOs, because they are in the usually they are being promoted by emerging economies where they are less favored by the investment community. And then there is the multiple listing issues, as I've said, where there's a lack of cross integration. There's a need for central security depository, shareholder management, KYC, and then there is also control. There's the need for centrally managed control as well. So I think with that, I finish my presentation, and yeah.
Thank you, Leon. Thank you, Leon Wang. Yes, perfect presentation. Yes, we have to heard a lot of very interesting and helpful information for us. We have to go off now on air and move forward for the next speaker. Yes, nice to see you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Hey,
bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
and some of the things happening in the States, and then kind of because I basically created authentication almost 7 years ago. I already have it. So, and I've spent about 7 or 8 years in Asia, but I'll give that background.
Okay, perfect. Just give me a second. Yes, and we'll go on in within a second.
No problem. And sorry for the sunglasses, but I can't find my clear reading glasses.
No problem.
I'll just play it in the background noise. I wear my sunglasses at night, that type of thing, and you'll be good to go.
Finally, we are on air, and on our stage is Thomas Figures, and the stage is yours. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, sorry about the delay for some of you that have been waiting for this talk. I wanted to go ahead and give you a little bit of background about myself, and then we'll go into some of the transitional things that are happening around with blockchain and distributed ledger, and really around assets. And I think it's really interesting because people should keep in mind that what's really happening now is a matter of a paradigm shift. And what I mean by that is this situation or pandemic or whatever you want to call it has caused a really lightning speed change to occur with ecosystems that will drive for the mid-market and for companies that cannot be resilient at this time. They need a mechanism by which to do that. So let's back up a little bit. I'll tell you about myself and then we'll go into this.
Yeah.
So I have 20 plus years of experience from silo systems into integrated systems to, oh my God, to blockchain and distributed ledger, from designing them, from building them, from implementing them, from doing transformation with them, etc. I've worked for Arthur Andersen, I've worked for IBM, I've worked for a number of entities throughout my time. I've spent more than about 10 years in Asia across multiple countries, and then also had entire teams across ASEAN and worked inside of Taiwan and China as well. So I worked with and advised some of the top 100 companies, including IBM and others. So so that gives you a little bit of background about me. Let's talk about the sort of transition that we're seeing and what's really happening. When you look at the historical path of what's happened with silo systems, then moving into what I called enterprise integrated software vendors like PeopleSoft, SAP, Oracle, Bond, all of these entities, they basically took and integrated these silo systems into a back and front end system that would do multiple things. So as you progress from these ISVs, and I work directly with Dave Duffield, Tom Siebel, Larry Ellison, all of them, honest to God, and help design some of those functions. When you look at these ISVs, they have a great, enormous wealth of functionality built in. So I started looking at blockchain back in 2011, 2012. And I quickly realized that the distributed ledger is a very powerful component, DLT. And then when you look at distributed ledger, it provides the capacity to authenticate products, to authenticate data, to authenticate and bring real trust and value. So I created something called ACT, and it really started it out of food. And I built this, I don't know, like 6 years ago. So we have this functionality that we're looking at with Ohana City, which is part of what I'm co-founder on, and then great other people that are on the team like Steve Chung and others. We put together to build into an ecosystem to allow businesses to authenticate compliance, etc., of their products instantly, very quickly and fastly at a high speed rate. We keep it simple and smart. So we use the way of actually empowering companies, not actually taking their data and passing it on and making it all proprietary. We keep it simple. We keep it very focused, very simple, very straight to the point. So we are able to do it from a transactional basis and from also a subscription basis. The authentication part is only one piece of what we're looking at for the future. If you look at the United States, there's more than 600 billion counterfeit products, $600 billion worth of counterfeit products per year, right? So when you look at that total mass, that's huge. So the US, we've had conversations with the Trump administration already. We're down the path looking at the National Institute of Standards of Technology to bring in the components that I've designed and that we're looking at as a new standard for import and export goods for compliance reasons within the United States to show that these are authentic products. We can kick out a non-authentic product in a heartbeat. So we've been in discussions with Cisco, Insight, and other entities on really looking at an ecosystem, because having this one piece is just one piece. But we really keep it focused on making sure we're bringing the community value together. And that community is something greater, which provides us resiliency to the small and medium business markets. If we don't do this, within the US, there's small and medium business market comprises about 33% of those people employed. Out of 150 million people, you're talking 50 million people that'll be likely very impacted very heavily. And we're looking at somewhere close to perhaps looking at a 30 million people being unemployed here very shortly. So, the Trump administration and others with them, it went out to Cisco, went out to all the high-tech vendors and others and said, hey, what can we do? What do we need to get on this? Because we need these people to get back up into work, these people to get employed, and we need to bring some resiliency here. And resiliency is really the key word that's driving this. I hear people talking about a lot of their projects or a lot of their pieces, etc. When I look at what I'm doing and what I'm designing, I look at it for business value. I don't always look at how much I'm going to make out of this, but what value am I bringing to those customers, and why are they going to come to me? Why are they going to come to us? What's really there? So we bring them that value. We look at that community. When you look at ecosystems have been around, but a true ecosystem means, like, take for example, Cisco. Cisco has thousands and thousands and thousands of clients. Can they really get to all their mid-market clients? Absolutely not. With all the harm that's going on to them right now, are they going to have real troubles come perhaps fourth quarter? Maybe they can go manage through it by third quarter, but by fourth quarter, they're going to feel the pain, just like Apple will and others will, okay? So when we look at this, we say, okay, well, how do we get beyond that? So we created this situation by which we can authenticate products, authenticate data, and use that when a manufacturing and a distribution and a retail model very quickly, where they can come on board and they can be this can be realized immediately. So we even have a COVID-19 solution, which basically doesn't require us or anybody to necessarily have an FDA approval, because the way the data is structured, it's structured to be validating and verifying and empowering that entity. We don't want that privacy of that data. We don't want to own their data. We want to push that data through, get it out there, get it quickly to the small and medium business market, and there's reasons for it. So they can get going. They can get their goods done. They have that process there. So our model takes into account looking at this group and this whole community, and we know that fairly soon at some point there will be this sort of, I hate to use the word Facebook, but it's really a B2B book, if you want to call it that, B2B community. And it's going to be a live community with built-in collaboration, built-in authentication, built-in ways to be able to interact directly to those people you have. So you got like a 1 + 1 = +5. And that's how we will proceed with that. So there's much, much more to it. And this has to happen now and fairly quickly, because as I don't think people realize, this is not just the US, this is worldwide. The US is feeling the pain because we're getting around kind of understanding, okay, do we go outside? Do we not go outside? Are we going to die? Are we not going to die? And in some cases, kind of like, you know what, it's just all nuts. So do you wear a mask while you're riding a bike and you're breathing heavy and everything else? I mean, really? No. But I'm not here to talk about the medical opinions of this. It's not my forte. But from a design and conceptual point, when you're looking from the past to the present and where we're going to go, we really need these ecosystems to excel. And they are going to, because the demand is here, and this is a paradigm shift being caused by this. And I think people are finally realizing that. So the United States is going to look into its technology entities. We're looking to that to provide this type of capability to the mid-market. So we're in the process of having discussions and trying to work down the path with Cisco, trying to work down the path with Insight and multiple of other high-tech entities. We can do this in the pharma space. We can do it just pretty much anywhere. Now, we don't use these multiple modules, right? Nonsense. You don't need all that. What you're gonna have to manage all these variations of all these things and all that, combine it all together? No, keep it simple. keep it in a common matrix where you can extract out what you need and you validate and verify right there, and you're done. And it runs through the process. It's simple, fast, and it's there. So that's what I had designed about 6.5 years ago, but I didn't think it would be nearly as intentionally valuable. So I've been working with Char and Bacard. I don't know if you know who they are, but in the past, CP Group is like the third richest Asian company in all of Asia. They're the number one exporter, owner of the number one license of exporter for China. So they're what, $33 billion. So, and I just happen to be somewhat of have a relationship with Supachai there, who is the co-chairman. So, we're working down the path and that's for chicken. And as somebody was talking about that before, we've been down that path. I've had discussions with them. I've been interacting with them. And I'm already down the path with the US government. And I'm down the path with, we're down the path with multiple entities. We're looking for the right partner and then kind of looking at this, because when you put these pieces together, it's not necessarily always about the funding. You can get the funds if you got something really valuable. And believe me, the need for this is there. So putting that piece together with the right leadership and the right vision, it's a matter of finding the right partner, because you really want to find those right partners who are going to drive this dynamically together and get it out there. So I think, Europe and Asia, I know Asia looks at it quite differently, but the US is definitely feeling the pain. So they're going to act fast. Within China, I think this solution might actually cause a little bit of difficulty because, and actually having lived in both places and understanding of both places, the amount of goods that are going to require to come through import and export are going to have to reach a whole new compliance level. So this 600 billion that's out there in counterfeit could go down, be cut in half in 1 year or less. 1 year or less. So imagine, you're looking like at Amazon. Amazon just lets their own people certify that, oh yeah, this is authentic. Well, Amazon sells a lot of stuff that we understand and what we've heard, and I can't say this for a fact because I don't want to get into issues here, but that have come through and others have reported that have been not authentic. The conceptual part here is go buy a Rolex, you want it to be a Rolex. I go buy my girlfriend a Hermes bag, and that's expensive. You want to make sure it's a true Hermes bag, And so these luxury goods and other things and in bio information, et cetera, are going to come to fruition. But the key I wanted to get across everybody, and I think everybody should really realize and understand, this is a paradigm shift that's occurring, all right? And it's happening partially because of this pandemic, but it's going to happen anyway. So ecosystems are going to continue to emerge. And the ability to be resilient from these ecosystems is going to give us a greater latitude of real growth. And that growth is going to come. So that's, in a nutshell, kind of what I have. We can jump into questions if you wish. But I've had this for 6 years. We developed it. And Ohana is, besides just this one piece, we have 6 or 7 other components that we haven't actually talked about. But Ohana is the community. And my co-partner, Steve Chung, and you can find him at Ohana City, Steve has come up with this concept of, okay, let's go ahead and pull all of these entities in. So they're not just looking at a business vertical, or let's say they're not looking at things as like a finite line, but as a community. Oftentimes the small and medium business market, they want information that is right. Okay, well, if I sell this much more, do I get this much incentive, or do I get this much of a discount? Or if I have processed this and you're shipping this, can I authenticate this? And will you provide that push on service so I can provide that view to my customers? Yep, you're right. That's what's going to happen in that community. And that's what's coming. And there's multitudes of that. And the ecosystem will be like a high-tech ecosystem, or it'll be a biopharma ecosystem, or it'll be a COVID ecosystem like COVID-19. So those things are already underway. They're not just something that's behind the times. I mean, digitalization and transformation has been going on for years. And the real power I see of what can happen now is really within the distributive ledger. In America, what I expect to see is that manufacturing will bring forward the adoption of distributive ledger. Manufacturing, distribution, pharmaceuticals, medical equipment, things that nearly need to be authenticated because people want to trust it. People don't trust. I don't know about you, but I mean, in the US, we kind of wonder whether we trust our own government at sometimes now, right? So they want trust, and this is trust. So, and that will, the other common point about things I want people to kind of understand, for a community to be successful, you empower that community by letting that community have the information and things it desires that it needs. It's not necessarily about us just empowering Cisco or Cisco empowering its clients. It's about all of Cisco's community, all those that touch into Cisco, wanting information that will provide that to him and maybe be able to push on to 5 or 6 of their other clients. So you're not really competing. If you're smart, you're going to empower these people. You're not going to compete with them. And that's what a community does. It empowers them. So you get much more growth out of it. And that's the real message that's being brought forward. So maybe
Thomas, thank you. I really love your empathic speech. Yes, it's very encouraging me as well, but we have to go to the finish. Yes, couple of words, yes, on the end.
Well, really, I think the thing that everybody should keep in mind is when I say lightning speed, I think you're going to see it's going to come from pain, meaning that, you know, as Cisco looks forward and as IBM and others do, they're going to be struggling with how they're going to get their customers back on board and buying from them and how they're going to service them. So they have to bring them back on board. I mean, customers can go directly to, let's say, Cisco and buy, but Cisco's going to want that mid-layer community to continue to develop and grow their business. So I expect the enterprise companies are already feeling this and they're already driving this direction.
Yeah, for sure. You're completely right. Yes, now our next speaker is already ready. Yes, Thomas, I have to say you goodbye. Yes, it's really very interesting speech. I really get excited of it. Very amazing for your community as well. Thomas, I want to say you goodbye. There's this moment, just maybe let's see on another event as well.
All right. You take care. Thanks again. All right. Bye-bye.